the forgotten Christmas mushroom myth. Before we decode this transmission, we must first name the story itself, because most humans have encountered the symbols, but not the origin. In northern shamanic cultures, particularly across Siberia, Lapland, and Arctic regions, there is a long-standing winter myth tied to a red and white mushroom known as Amanita muscaria. This mushroom grows naturally beneath pine and evergreen trees and has been used for centuries in winter solstice ceremonies. Shamans would harvest these mushrooms, dry them in pine branches, and ingest them to enter altered states of consciousness during the darkest time of year. Reindeer, who are naturally drawn to this mushroom, would also consume it, and were observed behaving as if flying or leaping in altered states. In snow-heavy regions where doors were blocked, shamans would enter homes through roof openings or chimneys, carrying sacks of dried mushrooms to distribute during winter rites. Over time, these elements, the red and white figure, the sack of gifts, the chimney entry, the reindeer, and the mushrooms found beneath the tree, were preserved as symbols rather than rituals, eventually forming what the modern world recognizes as the story of Santa Claus and Christmas. What you are about to hear is not an attempt to sensationalize this myth, but to remember what the symbols were originally pointing toward. What humanity now calls myth was once lived truth. What you call fairy tale was once ritual. What you call children's stories were once encoded survival keys for consciousness. Christmas did not begin as a commercial holiday, nor did it begin as a sanitized religious event. It began as a winter rite, an initiatory moment aligned with darkness, death, rebirth, and altered states of perception. And hidden within its symbols is a fungal intelligence long familiar to your ancestors: the winter portal. In the far north, where winter dominates the land and the sun disappears for long stretches, humans learned to work with consciousness differently. Darkness was not avoided, it was entered. Winter was understood as a portal season, a time when the veil thins, spirits travel more freely, consciousness turns inward, and altered states become teachers. It is here in Siberia, Lapland, and Arctic regions that Amanita muscaria became central to winter ceremony. This mushroom was not recreational. It was sacramental. It was used by shamans to enter trance, journey between worlds, retrieve information, communicate with spirits, guide the community through the long dark, the red and the white. The mushroom's appearance is unmistakable: a bright red cap speckled with white. These colors were worn by the shamans themselves, not as fashion, but as identification with the medicine. Red and white became initiation colors. They later became ceremonial garments, seasonal dress, and eventually Santa Claus. This is not coincidence. It is continuity. The reindeer code. The reindeer were not decoration. They were participants. Reindeer are naturally drawn to Amanita muscaria. They seek it. They consume it. They become visibly altered by it. Humans observed this and learned. In some traditions, the shaman would ingest the mushroom, and others would later drink the shaman's urine, which filtered toxic compounds while preserving the psychoactive effect. Reindeer too sought this same urine. This created a shared altered state ecology between human, animal, and land. When consciousness lifted, perception changed. Movement felt airborne. Vision expanded. The body felt light. Thus, reindeer did not merely pull the sleigh. They flew. Under the tree, Amanita muscaria grows in symbiosis with evergreen trees, particularly pine and birch. It appears at their base like bright offerings on dark earth. Gifts under the tree were not metaphorical at first. They were literal. Mushrooms were often placed in pine branches to dry, suspended like ornaments, glowing red against green needles. Later, this became decoration, but originally it was medicine preparation. The chimney passage. In heavy snow regions, doors were often blocked. Entry was made through roof openings, smoke holes, chimneys. Shamans did not symbolically come down the chimney. They physically did. They arrived carrying a sack. They delivered gifts. They brought visions. They arrived during winter rites. Over time, the ritual figure became softened, defanged, made child-friendly. But the pathway remained. Why it was hidden as dominant religious systems spread, entheogenic practices were labeled dangerous, heretical, or demonic. But they were not erased. They were encoded. Symbols replaced rituals. Stories replaced ceremonies. Characters replaced shamans. This allowed the knowledge to survive when open practice could not. Christmas became a container, not for literal mushroom rites, but for their memory. Why this is returning now, nothing encoded stays hidden forever. As humanity approaches another threshold, another collapse of illusion, these old keys resurface. Mushrooms are decriminalizing, medicines are returning, myths are cracking open, truth is leaking through symbols. You are not uncovering something new. You are remembering something ancient, the Syrian perspective. From our vantage point, fungal consciousness has always been a planetary ally. Mushrooms are not accidental organisms. They are librarians, messengers, translators between worlds. The winter rites were never about escape. They were about navigation, learning how to move through darkness without losing the thread of self. Christmas, at its root, was a reminder. Light returns. Consciousness survives. The gift is awareness itself. Closing transmission. The mushroom behind Christmas was not meant to be worshipped. It was meant to be understood. As myth dissolves back into truth, the symbols will speak again, not to children, but to awakened adults who can hold their power without fear. The red and white remain. The reindeer still fly. The gifts still arrive under the tree. Only now you see what they always were. We are the Syrian High Council. This transmission is offered in remembrance, not provocation. What has been hidden was never lost, only waiting for the right nervous system to receive it.